Hello internet friends, my name is Catherine and I'm the human behind Curation Miss Couture. And today is another Color Wheel Monday, the series in which I make my way through color theory one color at a time. And in this series so far, what we've done is complete the primary color triangle. And now we are almost done with yes, we're almost done with the secondary color triangle. So we've already did electric violet and we did blazing orange with the secondary colors, and now we're working with Kelly green for the last portion of the secondary color triangle. And today we are going to be adding carabiner blue into this color. So if you're interested, there is a playlist with all of the color theories series on this channel. So let's get into this. It's another Color Wheel Monday, the series in which I make my way through color theory one color at a time. And this is bittersweet because we are currently going to start working on our green, and that means that it's going to be the end of this portion of Color Wheel Monday. I still intend on posting about color theories on Monday, however, it might be slightly different because we will have made the round for the color wheel, and that's pretty exciting actually. So I think I've mentioned it, but I had an email from someone, and I think we're going to go with the wheel that they were trying to do. So it's a 45 piece beast, I would say. So I just need to figure out how I want to work on that. So, but before we go into there, we're going to be working our Kelly green, and we are going to be starting with carabiner blue for this. So the first thing we're going to do is our stock solutions. What is a stock solution? It's the liquid form of our dye, because this is the concentration or concentrate of the dry powder. So we need to make it in liquid form to be able to properly dye. We can always use dry powder directly onto the skeins, but we don't necessarily have an even result at the end. So we're going to do 1% stock solution. So what is a 1% stock solution? It's 1 gram of our dry powder for 100 milliliter of water. So the first thing you want to do before is putting on your respirator. It doesn't have to be this specific brand. Just make sure that this is a respirator that will be good to filter the fine particles, because we only have one pair of lungs, so protect them, please. Okay, let's put the mask on. Okay, let's do this, friends. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing the Kelly green. I'm going to do at least 300 milliliter because I want to make a little bit more, because I'm going to need more of it. So, oh, this is too much. I'm going to need to grab my spoon to remove some. Come on, why are you being so difficult this morning? Oh gosh, this morning this is being a little difficult. You know what? Good enough at this point. I know it's not. I don't get it. Oh, this is not fun this morning. I don't like that. Oh, yay. We finally got it. Okay, so this is for Kelly green. Let's do the carabiner blue. And always make sure that your scale is at 0 when you're starting to weigh your dry powder. Let's wait 2 seconds just to make sure that we're actually at 1 gram. Okay, doesn't change. Perfect. Okay, so now we can move this, go there, and add some water. Okay, and now that the dye powder is no longer on a dry form, we can remove the respirator. And now we're just going to make sure that the dry powder is completely dissolved. And I already know that we're going to have a lot of bleeding because Kelly Green bleeds a lot. And Carabiner Blue can also bleed a lot, so I'm already bracing myself for that. Okay, so now that we have our stock solution, we can go grab our mason jars to put our mini skeins in it. Okay, so now that we have our mason jar here, we have approximately 350 milliliters of tap water in each of those mason jars. There is no citric acid as of right now in them, because I want the dye to take its time to reach every strand of the mini skeins. So we're going to be adding 10 milliliter of our Kelly Green in them, because I want to have Kelly Green as the main character in there, and we'll be adding the Caribbean Blue to see how it impacts the color that we're going to obtain. So for the Caribbean Blue, we are going to be doing increments from 0.05% depth of shades up to a 1% depth of shade. So we're going to be adding 0.5 milliliter of Caribbean Blue in this one. We're going to be adding 1 milliliter, so this is 0.10% depth of shade. Now we're adding 2.5 milliliter of Caribbean Blue for our 0.25% depth of shade. And now we are going to add 5 milliliter in this one. 5 milliliter here. Then 7.5 for 0.75% depth of shade. Here, it's going to be super dark, that I know for sure. And now we're going to be adding 10 milliliters, so it's going to give us a 1% depth of shades for the Caribbean Blue in the last one. And I'm already all green and blue, so that's fun. Not, but it's fine. Okay, so where is my spoon? Right there, perfect. Just need... We're just going to be doing a quick stir. And the reason we are going by those numbers is because we're using 10-gram mini skeins of fingering stroll from Nitpick. There will be an affiliated link in the description box below if you're interested in purchasing the mini skeins to test out for yourself. So it makes the math easier, because I know that if I want a 1% depth of shade with 10 grams of mini skeins, I will need 10 milliliter of my 1% stock solution. So this is why we are doing it this way. And we still do not have any sort of citric acid, so that way we're going to be able to have a better color penetration for the mini skeins. And I'm going to go up and down with the mini skeins to try to open up the skeins as much as possible in the space they have, so that we can have an even coverage of the color. This is something that you can also do at home. Make sure that you move around, open up, so there's not as much resistance between the strands of yarn. So this, I don't know how much it's going to change the color of Kelly Green. And to be fair, one of the reasons it's the last color we're working with is definitely because of how much it bleeds, because it's just very tiring working with the color that always seems to be bleeding. Yeah, so this is one of the reason I didn't want to work with this. And also a reminder that blue is one of the colors that needs both the heat and the citric acid to properly start striking the yarn, because as of right now it doesn't look like there's any blue at all in those, and that's because it's technically still in the jar. It hasn't touched, it hasn't struck the color, the yarn, as of right now, that much. So we can see a hint in this one here that it's starting to move and touch the yarn, but it will need both the citric acid and the heat to actually properly show. So we're going to put this in the double boiler now. Okay, so I just turned on the heat on those skeins, and we're going to be waiting about 15 minutes before we are going to be adding the citric acid in here. And rule of thumb when it comes to citric acid is about 1 tablespoon per pound, so 454 grams of fiber or yarn. So less, like an eighth of a teaspoon, will be more than enough for our mini skeins here. So we're going to be waiting for 15 minutes, and then we're going to come back to add that citric acid. See in a little bit. It has been 15 minutes, so we're going to be adding our citric acid in our mason jars. There we go. Just for luck. There we go. So now that we've added the citric acid, we're still going to wait a little bit for the temperature of the water to reach its optimal temperature. So we want the temperature of the water to be between 85 to 95 Celsius to be able to properly strike the yarn. So once we've reached that temperature, what we're going to do is we are going to let it cook for 30 minutes. And then after the 30 minutes, we're just going to turn off the heat and let it cool down completely before washing out any excess dye. So I will see you in a little bit. Okay, let's check on this. So as expected, we have a tint of green in here, but it's Kelly green. I was expecting this. So now we're just going to turn off the heat. Hopefully some of the green will just go in the skeins as it's cooling off, because sometimes it needs a little like rest time. But once it's completely cooled off, we're just going to wash off any excess dye, and I know we are going to work a lot, and I'm not excited about it. So see you in a bit. So let's do this. So I'm going to let them sit in the water for a little bit because I know that they will be bleeding, and I just want to make sure that we remove all excess dye from there. And like, I can see a whole lot of green tint into the mason jar, so I know for a fact that we're going to see some bleeding. So we're just gonna have to work with that, unfortunately. So I'm going to let this sit for like 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're going to come back and see what we have, and we're most likely going to have to wash off and do another cleaning cycle, because that's the life with the Kelly green. So see you in a little bit. Okay, let's see what we have. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where is the 6th? Okay, there we go. Yeah. And I see quite a bit of green. And this is why I wanted to let it sit in here for a little bit. And it's crazy how little it changed the color. Like, it did change the color, but not that much. Okay. So, what we're going to do, a tiny bit more soap. We're going to let it sit in there for a little bit again, just to remove more of the dye. But I'm going to be very frank with you. With Kelly Green, there's a point where you have to stop trying to remove all excess dye, because Kelly green is one of those colors, just like with neon colors, that you will always have a hint of color in the water. If when you're blocking your project with those colors, what you can do is either steam block it, or you're just barely putting them in the water, and then once you've just like it's slightly like once it's damp enough that you can feel the way of the water in your finished object, you remove it immediately from the water, remove the excess water, and then just block as you would normally do. So those are two options that I recommend when you're working with neon colors and when you're working with greens or very saturated colors. You can do those as well. So I'm just going to let this sit a little bit in the water, and we're going to come back. Okay, let's. And as you can see, we still have quite a bit of green. Oh gosh. But like I said, there's a point where we have to give up and just. Okay, so it's going to be the last time I'm going to let it sit in the water. So it is cool water, so this is also why we don't recommend using hot water, because with hot water it would just like bleed even more. So I'm going to let it sit for a last time in the water, and then we're going to call it a day. Okay. And we still have quite a bit of green. However, I give up. So I'm going to put this in my spin dryer, and then we're going to let it dry overnight. So see you tomorrow. Well, actually, I'm going to show you the mason jars first. So you can see that we do still have quite a bit of green in all of the mason jars, and that's just the nature of Kelly green. You will have this hint of green pretty much as soon as you're past the 0.5% depth of shade. You will have green left over in your mason jars or in your dye bath. So this is something to keep in mind when working with greens in general, but Carolee green is particularly annoying. So I will see you tomorrow. And here's the final result of adding carabine blue to our Kelly green. And as you can see, we don't really have a whole lot of change, and I'm actually a little surprised about that. I was expecting a darker green at the end of it, but like I guess that this one is slightly darker. But yeah, we don't see a very drastic color change, and I am a little surprised that is not a little bit more drastic. I know that Kelly green can be like super intense, but I didn't realize how intense it can be. So yeah, basically if you're using Kelly green, just I guess make sure that you use a very low quantity of it. Yeah, I think that would be the main takeaway for this one. So yeah, fun. I don't really have a whole lot to say besides Kelly green is quite intense. So if you've liked the video, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye.